This video focuses on content resources or resources that you can use to study for a topic. So that's in this section of the main resources that you have for the class. So here's a few different things that I see right off the bat. The most important one is this one right here, unit files. So if I click on it, actually, I think I'm going to use the physics one for this because it's a little more complete. So I'm going to go back to the physics class resources and use that. All right. So what you have here is the main resources to use for the class. So if you go to unit files, right, you will see all of the units for the year organized by topics, right? And then on the bottom, you have other kinds of general resources, activities, challenges, and quests that you can do for extra credit or test grade upgrades, forums, which are where we put or reflection tasks, guided lecture questions, which I think of it as study guides for the topic, but the ones that I use doing discussions, right, to lead discussions. You have this physics profile page, which is a place where it's a type of assignment that we can do for extra credit, where we research physicists and talk about the impact that they've had in physics. General review, which doesn't really fit with any specific topic. Study guides, and finally, warm-up tasks for any given topic. Now, within any given topic, you also have a lot of different resources. So I'm just going to pick here kinematics as an example. So if I'm in kinematics, I can see that I have subtopics within that. So I'm just going to pick one-dimensional kinematics, which is the first area of the year. So in there, you find math practice, you find notes and handouts. Sometimes you have presentations as well. You can find podcasts. Sometimes you have games. Sometimes you have projects and activities, which you have in this case. General practice that is not mathematical, more conceptual practice. And of course, you also have modeling resources for those of you who choose to do modeling instead. So this is where you would find all the resources that you need. I do want to point out that the podcast folder has video tutorials of teachers teaching the topic, and it's usually very, very, very useful. All right? So that's the unit files, and all the resources you can use for any given unit are going to be there. I will tell you, though, that the unit files have numbers, and in the syllabus, there's a code for every unit listed in the syllabus, so you can help you find the unit that you need to go to in these resources to find the stuff that will help you out. So that's important as well. So back to the resources, you also have general class resources that are useful. And these are a lot of the same things that are linked on that main resources page. And so you don't really need to go in here very often unless you want to see where the files live, really, right? Another one that I use a lot is this physics links and YouTube channel file. So let me click on that so you can see that. That is really, really useful. Now, the first page shows you a series of different websites that you can get access to content resources. Websites of teachers, which are amazing, better than I am for sure. Resource websites to actually have studying about a teacher, which are not really teacher websites. They're hosted by like organizations. General websites about physics in general. Websites about the courses. General tutorials, demos, activities, and practice in virtual labs websites. And finally, websites that just have education resources in general, which will have a physics category on them. If all of this fails, you can always Google and find your own. But I've already done some of that research for you and find some of the best stuff that's out there to help you study. So if you ever get stuck, you live in an era where you don't have to rely only on the teacher that you have, but you can go to all of these awesome resources that you have. There's also textbook publisher resources. So these are companion websites that come together with textbooks. And I posted that here so that you can also have additional resources for your textbook or even textbooks that you don't have. Then you get software links. There's apps here that we can use in class all the time, helpful study apps, apps about science in general, apps that help you access the textbook, virtually textbook online, etc. The next set of resources is my favorite, which is YouTube links. In here, you will find my favorite podcasters that teach physics or chemistry. If you're doing this for chemistry, the chemistry stuff looks very similar to the way the physics is set up in here. Entire physics courses, which are in open source from universities. Places that have multiple learning things, which do often include physics or chemistry things. Channels that belong to universities, general science channels which you might like and find interesting, astronomy channels, earth science channels, education channels, and other channels which are awesome and you should know about on YouTube. So this is me trying to share some of my awesome research I've done online to help you be an awesome student in my class. All right? So the last resource that I want to show is the class files. So the class files are also very useful because they let you see general operations of things which are useful for a lot of different things. One of them, for example, is how-tos. In this how-tos, every different type of assignment that's listed on the assignment guide that I feel needs a little extra explanation for how to do it has a instruction in here. So very useful, and actually in the main resources document at the very bottom, there's a direct link to that as well. All right. Now, there is actually a link missing here, and I am going to create it right now to something that I recommend you use all the time. So I'm going to throw it in there. And by the way, this is pretty cool, so you get to see how I create links. So I right-clicked on the folder that I wanted to and clicked on Get Shareable Link, and now the link is on my favorites. Right? So in the case of physics, there is this other thing that I call Higher Order Conceptual Practice Workbooks. Right? So these are amazing, amazing practice for physics that you can use in the class as well. Right? And they are all conceptual practice. There's several different versions of them. Right? You can use this to extra practice at home or as one of the options to do practice in class. There's 4 different versions of them, and within each one there's an index where you can find the topics and find problems to work on to get you thinking about the topic. In the case of chemistry, so let's look at the chemistry ones. Chemistry also has something like that, all right? It has Pogos, ChemQuest, and Skill Practice. And those are 3 different types of these higher order conceptual practice that you can use. In the case of chemistry, I also linked reference sheets to the periodic table and things like that. And I will probably add a link to a physics reference sheet that I have as well. And in the case of chemistry, I also made a special list of videos, which are the videos you should watch if you're trying to get education that way. So I put that in there. I don't really have one of those for physics, but I might create that later. So those are essentially additional content resources that I made available for you to use for the class. All right. By the way, I think I remember why I did not create a reference sheet for physics, because there's many of them and they're under the general resources. So you can just find them right there under general resources. You can find good reference sheets for physics in there. But I will maybe add the link to it here later. So if you see this after the video, you should see that link in there. All right, guys.